Ethan Cole had always been the quiet one. The kind of son who stayed in the background, fixing broken fences, paying bills when his parents forgot, and never asking for thanks. His parents, Richard and Helen Cole, rarely looked at him with pride. That emotion was reserved for Clara, their shining jewel, their golden daughter. Clara could do no wrong. When she dropped out of college to find herself, their parents celebrated her independence. When Ethan graduated top of his class in engineering, they said, "That's nice, but Clara's going to be a star." Everything she did glittered, even her mistakes. Everything he did faded, even his victories. Ethan tried not to let it hurt. He built his own life, started a small construction company, worked 16-hour days, and slowly made enough to live comfortably. But every family gathering was a reminder that no success could earn him what he truly wanted: his parents' respect. Then came the news that changed everything. Grandpa Walter, his mother's father, had passed away. The man who'd once been a towering presence in their lives, with stern eyes and a sharp sense of justice, was gone. Ethan had always admired him. Grandpa Walter never played favorites. He saw through Clara's charm and often said, "Pretty faces fade, character doesn't." Ethan still remembered that line. The will reading was set for the following week at the law firm of Winston and Hayes. His parents called him the night before. "Don't be late, Ethan," his mother said sharply. "This is an important day for the family." "The family," he repeated, bitterness touching his tone. He knew what that meant. Them and Clara. The next morning, Ethan dressed simply in a navy suit, one he'd worn at his grandfather's funeral. As he arrived at the law office, he saw his parents' luxury car already parked in front. Clara stood beside it in a designer dress, laughing into her phone. Her blonde hair shimmered under the sun. His mother rushed to hug her, while his father patted her shoulder proudly. No one looked at Ethan. Inside the conference room, everything smelled like money: polished wood, leather chairs, and the faint scent of expensive perfume that Clara had sprayed too liberally. The lawyer, Mr. Hayes, greeted everyone with calm professionalism and began sorting through papers. Ethan sat across from his parents. His mother gave him a tight smile, the kind that carried no warmth. "You look tired," she said. "I've been working," he replied quietly. Clara smirked. "Still at that little construction thing?" "It's doing fine," he answered, though he didn't owe her any explanation. The conversation died quickly. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. "As per Mr. Walter Cole's will, I'll begin reading the document in full. Please remain seated." Ethan leaned back, his hands folded. He wasn't expecting much. Maybe a keepsake, a letter. Grandpa had been kind, but even he had his limits under his daughter's influence. Still, Ethan felt a small flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, someone had seen his worth. Clara, on the other hand, was practically glowing. Her eyes darted to the checkbook the lawyer had placed on the table. Her diamond bracelet sparkled as she brushed her hair back, confident and radiant. As the reading began, Ethan felt invisible, like a ghost at his own family's table. His parents hung on every word, waiting for the riches they believed were theirs by right. Ethan kept quiet, unaware that fate, sealed within a single envelope, was about to rewrite everything they thought they controlled. And in that moment, sitting in the shadow of his family's pride, Ethan felt a strange calm settle in his chest. The calm before a storm he didn't yet see coming. The room fell silent as Mr. Hayes, the lawyer, opened the folder marked, "Walter Cole, Last Will and Testament." The rustle of paper echoed like thunder in Ethan's chest. He clasped his hands tightly under the table, trying to steady his breathing. "First," the lawyer began, "Mr. Cole wished to express his gratitude to his daughter, Helen Cole, and son-in-law Richard Cole, for attending to his affairs during his illness." Ethan caught a faint smile spreading on his mother's lips. His father straightened his tie, proud as ever. "However," the lawyer continued, "he made specific arrangements regarding the distribution of his assets. The majority of his estate, his business shares, his savings, and certain investments, have already been settled in trust funds." Clara's eyes gleamed. She leaned forward, waiting. Ethan could feel the energy in the room shift, a sense of entitlement thick enough to choke on. Then the lawyer looked up. "Mrs. Helen Cole and Mr. Richard Cole will each receive $1 million. A satisfied murmur escaped Helen's lips. She reached for Richard's hand. Ethan noticed how quickly they exchanged a look of triumph. And to Ms. Clara Cole, Mr. Hayes continued, Mr. Walter Cole leaves a gift of $10 million. Clara gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth as she turned to her parents. Oh my God, she whispered, tears of joy glimmering in her eyes. Her mother immediately hugged her. Her father chuckled in disbelief. Ethan sat still. $10 million. Then his mother turned to him with a smile that wasn't kind, wasn't loving, it was smug. Don't look so surprised, Ethan. You've always been the independent one, right? His father joined in, his voice sharp. Your grandfather wanted you to stand on your own feet. You have your work. Go earn your own fortune. The lawyer blinked, uneasy at the cruelty of their tone. If I may, he said carefully, I haven't yet finished reading. But Helen waved her hand dismissively. There's no need. Ethan understands. Walter always said he admired his work ethic. She laughed softly, as if it were some kind of compliment. Ethan's throat tightened. For years, he had worked himself to the bone, thinking that maybe his efforts would make them proud. Now, in front of strangers, they'd reduced him to nothing. A man undeserving of love or legacy. He rose from his chair, his voice low but steady. Congratulations, Clara, he said, forcing a small smile. You got what you always wanted. Clara looked up, pretending to be sympathetic. Oh, Ethan, don't be bitter. You've got your business. You'll be fine. Yeah, he murmured, his chest burning. I always am. He turned to leave, ready to walk out of their lives for good. But before he could reach the door, Mr. Hayes cleared his throat again, more firmly this time. Actually, there's one more thing, he said, lifting a smaller sealed envelope from his folder. Mr. Walter left specific instructions that this be opened last, and only after the rest of the will was read. It's addressed to you, Ethan. The room froze. Helen frowned. What do you mean only for him? Mr. Hayes ignored her and carefully broke the seal. Inside was a letter, yellowed slightly at the edges, written in Grandpa Walter's neat handwriting. The lawyer unfolded it and began to read aloud. To my grandson, Ethan Cole. You were the only one who visited me when I was too weak to speak. You fixed the gate when it broke, brought groceries when your parents forgot, and you never once asked for anything in return. I saw more of myself in you than in anyone else. Helen shifted uncomfortably. Clara's smile faltered. That is why I made separate arrangements, hidden until the time was right. What your parents and sister do not know is that the true inheritance, the legacy I built with my hands, belongs entirely to you. Ethan's eyes widened. His parents stared at the lawyer, stunned. Mr. Hayes looked up from the letter. Mr. Cole instructed me to explain everything after this reading, in private. Ethan met his mother's gaze. For the first time, she looked unsure. The arrogance drained from her face like color from a dying flame. As he sat back down, his heartbeat quickened. Not from anger this time, but from something unfamiliar. Hope. The room felt heavier after the lawyer's words. The smug laughter that had filled it only minutes ago had dissolved into stunned silence. Clara fidgeted with her diamond bracelet. Her mother's fingers clenched the arm of her chair, and Richard's face flushed red with confusion. Ethan sat quietly, unsure if he had heard correctly. Mr. Hayes set the letter down carefully and looked straight at him. Ethan, your grandfather left specific instructions that we speak privately. Would you all please step outside for a few minutes? Helen was quick to protest. This is absurd. He was our father. With respect, Mrs. Cole, Mr. Hayes replied firmly. These were Mr. Walter's legal wishes. I must honor them. Her protest died under the lawyer's calm authority. With a final glare at Ethan, she grabbed Clara's wrist and stormed out, Richard following behind. The door shut, leaving Ethan and Mr. Hayes alone. For a few moments, neither spoke. The ticking of the clock was the only sound. Then the lawyer slid a new folder across the desk. Your grandfather was a very deliberate man. What he left you is significant. Ethan's breath caught. He slowly opened the folder and froze. Inside were documents stamped with seals and signatures. Ownership papers, account numbers, property deeds. The first page alone mentioned an offshore investment company, Cole Maritime Holdings, valued at several $100 million. Ethan blinked, his mind racing. This can't be right. Mr. Hayes smiled faintly. It's very right. Your grandfather transferred ownership of these holdings to a trust in your name 3 years ago. He kept it quiet because he didn't trust your parents' motives. Ethan swallowed hard, his heart thundering. But why me? The lawyer handed him another letter. This one shorter, handwritten in shaky but familiar ink. Ethan, I built my fortune from nothing, from the calloused hands of an honest man. I've watched greed consume the family I raised. But not you. You still carry the work ethic I once had. I couldn't stop the favoritism, but I could make things right. So I've done what I should have done long ago. I've given my true heir what he's earned. Use it wisely. Build, don't destroy. And remember, justice comes in silence. Ethan felt his eyes sting. He folded the letter carefully, running his fingers over the old man's handwriting. So, he said softly, he really saw me. Yes, Mr. Hayes replied. More than you ever knew. The lawyer continued to explain the intricate details. The hidden mansion under Grandpa's name, now legally Ethan's. The stock shares that quietly held control over the family's old company. Even a clause written in bold legal terms that revoked every other family member's inheritance if they attempted to challenge Ethan's rights or speak publicly against him. It was a masterstroke of foresight, poetic even. Grandpa Walter had known exactly how his daughter and son-in-law would behave. When Ethan finally stepped out of the office, his parents and sister were waiting in the lobby, faces twisted in frustration. His mother rose immediately. Well, what nonsense did that man tell you? Ethan paused, studying them. For the first time, he saw them not as parents, but as strangers bound by greed. He told me Grandpa left me something, Ethan said quietly. Something he thought I deserved. Clara rolled her eyes. Please. Probably a watch or an old book. Enjoy your pity gift. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe. But it's enough. He turned and walked away before they could respond, leaving them staring after him in confusion. As he stepped into the sunlight outside, Ethan felt the weight of years lift from his shoulders. The humiliation, the neglect, the endless need to prove himself. It no longer mattered. His grandfather had seen through it all and restored what was taken from him. For the first time in his life, Ethan didn't just feel worthy, he felt free. 3 weeks passed since the will reading, and the ripples of that day had turned into waves that crashed hard on the Cole family. Ethan stayed silent through it all. He didn't gloat, didn't call, didn't explain. He simply let the truth, and his grandfather's meticulous planning, do its work. By the second week, whispers began spreading through town. The Cole inheritance was frozen. The banks, acting under the clauses hidden in Grandpa Walter's will, had locked every cent of Helen and Richard's money pending legal review. Clara's $10 million check bounced before it could even clear. The mansion they called home was no longer theirs. The ownership title had quietly shifted to Ethan Cole. Greed had finally met justice. When Helen called, her voice trembled between anger and desperation. Ethan, this has to be a mistake. They said the house isn't in our name anymore. What's going on? Ethan listened calmly. I think Grandpa made his intentions clear. Everything belongs to the rightful heir now. You, she spat, disbelief thick in her tone. After everything we've done for this family? He laughed softly. Exactly. Everything you've done. She hung up. Days later, he received another call, this time from Clara. Her tone was softer, pretending warmth. Ethan, come on. Don't you think this is going too far? We're family. Family, he repeated. Funny, I don't remember being treated like one at that table. Silence stretched. Then he said, Grandpa didn't punish you. He simply gave you what you earned. And with that, he ended the call. A month later, Ethan drove to the old Cole mansion, his mansion now. The gates creaked open under the same hinges he had repaired years ago when no one else cared. The gardens were overgrown, the fountain dry. The grand estate that had once shimmered with arrogance now looked like an empty shell. When he stepped out of his car, Helen appeared on the porch, her face pale. Richard followed, looking much older than he had weeks ago. Clara sat on the steps, her designer clothes traded for simple ones, eyes red from crying. Ethan. His mother started, voice trembling. Please. We've nowhere else to go. He studied them for a long moment. Once, those words would have softened him. Once he would have done anything to earn their approval. But now he saw them clearly, not as parents, but as people who had chosen greed over love. "I'm not here to hurt you," Ethan said finally. "Grandpa wouldn't have wanted that. But the house, this place belongs to me now. You can stay for a while. As tenants, not owners." His father bristled. "Tenants? In our own home?" Ethan's tone stayed calm. "It was never really yours, was it?" He turned away before they could answer. Inside, the house smelled of memories, the faint scent of old books and wood polish, the echo of his grandfather's laughter. Ethan walked through the halls slowly, stopping at the study where Grandpa Walter had once taught him chess. The same wooden board still sat on the table, the pieces mid-game, as if waiting for someone to make the final move. He stood there for a long time, then whispered, "You already made it for me, Grandpa." Outside, the autumn wind rustled the trees, carrying away years of bitterness. Later that evening, Ethan visited the cemetery. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and crimson. He knelt before Grandpa Walter's gravestone and placed a small white rose on the marble. "You saw what I couldn't say," he murmured. "You gave me justice without me having to seek revenge. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." He stayed there until the stars appeared. Peaceful, content, no longer the forgotten son but the man his grandfather always knew he could be. As he rose to leave, a faint smile crossed his lips. His revenge hadn't come through anger or cruelty. It came through truth, patience, and the wisdom of a man who loved him enough to make things right. And for Ethan Cole, that was the sweetest revenge of all.